Okay, so before I get into today's episode, I want to take a moment to just kind of level set. I took a few weeks off over the holidays, and some of that was family time, and some of that was just kind of rest and cleansing the creative palate. But a lot of that was stepping back and looking at this podcast from a 30,000-foot view. Not burnout, because I love podcasting, just perspective. There is a podcaster named Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting who says that podcasts aren't a statue, they're a recipe. You adjust them, you refine them, and you let them kind of become what they're naturally trying to be. And honestly, I think that applies to most things in life. When I looked at where the show was heading, the direction was already clear. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't venting or blaming or being angry at the world. I mean, there are enough Gen Xers out there who do that. Let's be honest. Yelling is easy. Blaming is easy. Getting mad gets attention, clicks, and views. But explaining, translating, helping people understand what's actually happening around them, passing on those skills and transferring that knowledge, well, that's a little harder. And that's where this show was already going. So the name changed from Gen X Resistance to Gen X Analog to Algorithm. And not because Gen X is better, not because anyone else is worse, but because we lived through that transition, and that gives us something useful to pass along. So when I call something out on the show, it's not to say that we were right and you were wrong. It's to say, here's the system you're living in, and here's how it works. Look, I genuinely want young people to succeed, because this is the world my kids live in. This is the world that your kids and grandkids are growing up in. So without making this too religious, there is a line from the Bible that fits this moment really well. It says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God was causing the growth. The point isn't who planted or watered. The point is the growth. And that's how I see this. We don't control the outcomes, but we can pass along what we've learned. Gen X has all of these invisible skills, things that we learned without realizing that we were learning them. And those skills don't help anybody if we gatekeep them. They have to be transferred. So this show is about translating and transferring how things worked, how they changed, how to stay human inside a system that doesn't explain anything. That's the reset. That's the direction. So now let's talk about why life didn't used to feel this measured and what changed. So if you're under a certain age, this might be hard to imagine, but life didn't always come with numbers attached to it. You didn't wake up knowing how many people liked you. You didn't track your productivity in apps. You didn't compare your progress to strangers every 5 minutes. You just lived. You learned by doing things. You knew you were getting better because it felt easier, not because the graphs told you so. That's not nostalgia. That's putting things into context. Today, almost everything is measured. Followers, likes, views, income, steps. We even measure our sleep. Every bit of our productivity is measured. Look, numbers aren't bad. I love numbers. They're very useful. But when numbers become identity, people start feeling like they're losing at a game that they never agreed to play. And that's not a personal problem. That is a system problem. Once life becomes this scoreboard, everything starts feeling personal. Every missed number feels like a failure. Every gap feels like it's your fault. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is that the tools you're using don't just measure life, they reshape it? So let's start with the biggest tool. And we still call this thing a phone. And that word is confusing when you look at it as a whole, because making calls is probably the least important thing that they do. Calling a smartphone a phone is like calling your house a mailbox. See, because right now the growing rectangle in your pocket can let you check your bank account, move money, pay bills, deposit checks, unlock or lock your car from anywhere on the planet, start your car remotely, tell you where your car is. turn your lights on or off at home, adjust your thermostat, show you who's at your front door, navigate traffic in real time, track your health, sleep, and heart rate, replace your wallet, tickets, keys, camera, calendar, and map, connect directly to your vehicle's computer, broadcast your voice, image, or ideas to the entire planet. See, that's not a phone, that is a remote control for your life. Look, I graduated high school in 1992, and to do all of that back then, here's what it would have taken, roughly. So, a 1992 cost breakdown, and this is conservative, you had to have a landline phone. That's $50 to $100. Long distance calling, 25 cents to 50 cents per minute, assuming that you weren't calling the psychic hotline. Personal computer, $2,000 to $3,000. A modem, about $300. Internet access, about $100 a month. GPS unit, like in 92, I think there was a black and white screen on the Magellan Nav 5000. That was $1,900. Paper maps and atlases to get all of the maps that you can get off your phone. It's at least $200. A 35 millimeter camera, $300 to $600. A camcorder, $1,000 to $1,500. A stereo system, a radio, cassette, CD player, $200 to $1,000. A filing cabinet with a ton of storage, about $200. Bank access, you can only do that in person during business hours. Home automation wasn't a thing. Car access control, yeah, it was your key to unlock your door and to start it. So to replicate just the basic functions of modern smartphones in 1992, you're easily looking at anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000, and that doesn't cover data. That number is ridiculous. It would take multiple devices, an entire room of space, a lot of time, and a lot of friction. Today, it's one device, one screen, one monthly bill. In our day, with all of those devices, we had an understanding of what each tool did. When something broke, you knew what broke. Today, everything is bundled together. When something doesn't work, your bank app, your car app, your smartphone, your smart home, your feed, you don't exactly know what failed. So people don't blame the system, they blame themselves. Well, it must be my fault. I must not understand this. I must be behind. See, that's not weakness. That's just what happens when all of that complexity is hidden. And that's the skill that Gen X brings to the table. Unbundling the system so that people stop thinking that they are the problem. When things broke in the past, the failure was visible. Your VCR ate your tape. Oh, now you knew why movie night was over. Today, systems still fail. You just don't see how. Your feed changes. Your reach drops. Your work disappears into the void. No explanation, no warning. That invisible layer, the algorithm, it changes how people feel about themselves. We grew up troubleshooting visible problems. This younger generation, they're stuck judging themselves based on invisible decisions that are made by machines. And that's not fair. Failure didn't used to feel permanent. When you messed up, you learned, you adjusted, and life went on. Now, failure, in a lot of cases, feels recorded, archived, searchable. The fear was, what if I look stupid? That's what it used to be. Now, it's, what if I'm already behind everyone else? So let me tell you one of Gen X's invisible skills, kind of a secret that most young people don't understand today. Most mistakes don't matter nearly as much as they feel like they do. You see, you're not seeing people's learning curve. You're seeing their highlight reel, picked and promoted by the systems that don't care how long it took for them to get there. Real growth still happens the same way it always has, quietly, slowly, and without an audience. Gen X gets called cynical all the time. And I don't think that we're cynical. I think that we're skeptical. And there is a difference. You see, cynicism implies this cloud of negativity, whereas skepticism says, hey, hold on for a moment. I don't have all the facts. See, we learned early ads exaggerate, products break, authority isn't always right. So we asked questions. What is this really doing? Who benefits? What happens if I don't play along? And that mindset still works. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, why does the system want me to be afraid of failing? Most systems are designed to keep your attention, not protect your confidence. And once you see that, that fear loses its grip. See, a lot of people today feel like imposters. And that's not because they are, it's because everything happens in public now. We learned to get better quietly, to fail without posting it, to trust time more than applause. If you feel behind, it's usually because you're comparing your everyday effort to someone else's finished product. Well, guess what? You're not broken. You're not late. You're just human. This show is called Analog to Algorithm because we lived on both sides of the change. Gen X isn't here to complain. We are here to translate and transfer. And if you're younger, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not failing. You're adapting to a system that measures everything and explains almost nothing. The most important skill you can relearn is simple. Question the scoreboard. Understand the tools that you're using. Don't let numbers decide who you are. Because once you understand the system, fear stops running the show. All right, I'm Paul Stevens. This has been Gen X Analog to Algorithm. Where can you find me? On most podcast platforms and on YouTube. You can leave me a message in the link in the description or in the comment field. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning. Most importantly, stay rad, my friends.